Alien cadets viewed human warfare, one fainted. Others began to question the mission. The cadets of the Ketheri Dominion had been raised on tales of conquest. From hatchling age, they were taught that the galaxy was their inheritance, that weaker species existed only to be ruled, bent, or broken. Their mission was simple: observe, study, and eventually subdue the upstart primates of Sol 3, humans. The training hall was dark, lined with hollow screens that could immerse a cadet in any battlefield recorded across the stars. Captain Voris, their instructor, stood with his claws folded neatly behind his back. Today, he rasped, his mandibles clicking with satisfaction, you will observe Terran warfare. What you see will confirm why the Dominion must tame them quickly, before they spread their savagery unchecked. The screens lit. At first, the cadets leaned forward eagerly. They had studied war before. They knew the sight of disciplined Ketheri legions marching across continents, the elegant precision of orbital bombardments, the sterile efficiency of subjugation campaigns. But what bloomed before them was not sterile. It was chaos. The humans were fighting in trenches filled with mud, smoke, and blood. Explosions tore apart the earth, shrapnel howling through the air. Soldiers, fragile bipeds, charged through firestorms with screams on their lips, dragging wounded comrades through the mire even as enemy shells fell around them. Cadet Kren's crest feathers flattened against his skull. They're running into the fire, he whispered. Another scene replaced it, a ruined city, buildings burning, civilians huddling in basements while human defenders fought block by block. Tanks rumbled down shattered streets, snipers hid in rubble, and when a tank was destroyed, soldiers climbed atop its flaming carcass and used it as cover to keep firing. Cadet Trice's breathing grew shallow. His claws clutched at his uniform. Instructor, are these simulations? Surely no species would. They are records, Captain Voris interrupted coldly. Then came the orbital wars, human fleets tearing into each other with mass drivers, missile swarms, and plasma lances, ships gutted and left to drift. Yet survivors sealed hull breaches with their own bodies, continuing to fire until the very last. Cadet Drill swayed in his seat. He tried to focus on the screen, but his eyes rolled back, and with a choked hiss he collapsed, unconscious. The others didn't even notice. They were frozen, transfixed by horror. Finally, the footage ended on a single scene, a human soldier, uniform scorched, face streaked with blood and ash. Around him, his squad lay dead or dying. Enemy forces closed in, dozens to one. The human stood anyway. He fixed his rifle bayonet, drew a breath, and charged. The screen went black. Silence. No cadet spoke. At last, Cadet Trice broke the stillness, his voice trembling. Captain, what is the mission again? To bring them under Dominion control, Voris said. Another cadet, Kren, stared at the floor. And, if we fail? Voris's mandibles twitched, betraying unease. He hadn't expected that question. But every cadet was thinking the same thing now, one thought that no amount of training could silence. What if we are not their conquerors, but their next prey? Would you like me to expand this into a longer cadet perspective story, where each alien reacts differently? Fear, denial, fascination, rebellion? That way it feels like a full HFY Academy drama. Got it, here's the continuation, picking up right where we left off. Part 2, Doubt in the Cadet Hall. Cadet Drill was carried out by attendants, still unconscious, his crest limp and his mandibles slack. None of the others moved to laugh at him, or mock his weakness. Under normal circumstances, such a fainting would have earned endless ridicule. But not after what they had seen. Cadet Trice's claws tapped nervously against his datapad. Instructor, he said slowly, his throat tightening around every word. Why do the humans fight like that? They don't retreat when their lines break. They don't surrender when surrounded. They endure, even when endurance is impossible. Voris's gaze swept the room, cold and sharp. Because they are animals, they are ruled by primitive instincts, fear, rage, and a stubborn refusal to know when they are beaten. It is not strength, it is madness. That madness is why we must break them swiftly. But his words rang hollow. Cadet Kren leaned forward, eyes narrowing. Madness? Captain, what I saw was not madness. It was, he hesitated, searching for the right word. devotion, to each other, to survival, to something greater than themselves. The room grew heavy with silence. The air recycler hummed, far too loud in the stillness. Cadet Sill, who had remained quiet until now, finally spoke. Her voice was low, almost a whisper. If we face them, if the Dominion sends us to war with them, will we stand like that? Will we throw ourselves into the fire for one another? Or will we scatter as our drills teach us, measured, efficient, logical? The question struck deeper than any explosion on the holoscreens. Tries looked at his talons. I don't know anymore. Captain Voris slammed a claw against the lectern, startling them. Enough. You are cadets of the Dominion. You will not speak as though these primates are our equals. They are nothing. They are fuel for the expansion of the Ketheri. Do you understand? The cadets answered in unison, but it was not the sharp, confident chorus Voris expected. Yes, Captain. The sound was brittle, hollow. Voris heard it. He knew the seed of doubt had already been planted, and no order could pull it free. As the cadets filed out of the hall, whispers followed them like smoke. They fight like predators. No, worse, they fight like a pack protecting its own. What if we cannot break them? What if the Dominion is wrong? Far above, orbiting the Academy world, the Dominion's fleet waited for orders to begin the Sol 3 pacification campaign. And in the shadows of the cadet halls, the first cracks in Ketheri faith began to spread. Would you like me to push Part 3 toward the moment when these same cadets are actually sent against humans, and they discover whether their doubts were right? Perfect, let's advance into Part 3, when the cadets are no longer just spectators but get thrown into humanity's fire for real. Part 3, First Contact and Fire. The cadets had only days to process what they had seen before the order came down. Their training tour was cut short. They were being deployed, not as observers this time, but as junior officers assigned to the front. The Dominion's fleets had already entered Sol space. The campaign planners had promised a swift victory. The primates are fractured. The high strategists declared. They lack unity. Their world is ripe for conquest. Cadet Tries, now Lieutenant Tries, didn't believe that anymore. Neither did most of his classmates. But orders were orders. Their first deployment was a ruined industrial district on the outskirts of a Terran megacity. Smoke rose in black columns. Human resistance cells had cut through 3 Dominion patrols already. The cadets' task was simple: secure a landing zone and flush out survivors. The dropships descended through ash-thick clouds. As the cadets disembarked, the ground quaked with distant artillery. Stay sharp, barked the Dominion commander. Primitive or not, they are cunning. Do not underestimate. Crack. The first shot echoed. A Dominion trooper collapsed, head shattered by a human rifle round. Then another fell. Then another. The cadets dove for cover, their training scattering them into disciplined fire teams. Plasma bolts lit the rubble, burning holes into walls. But the humans did not scatter. They closed in. Every street, every ruin concealed a rifle barrel, a grenade, a trap. Cadet Kren watched in horror as a human soldier, bleeding from his chest, dragged himself forward, clutching a satchel. Before the Dominion could finish him, he pulled the pin. The explosion tore through 2 armored warriors. Kren's claws shook on his weapon. Instructor Voris, they're dying just to kill us. Voris snarled, firing blindly into the ruins. Then kill them faster. But the cadets saw the truth. The humans weren't just defending. They weren't just resisting. They were enduring. Hours passed. The cadets were pinned in rubble, supplies dwindling. Humans swarmed like shadows, vanishing after each strike, reappearing where least expected, and all the while, they shouted to one another, not orders, not fear, but words the translator struggled to capture. Hold the line. Cover me. No one left behind. Sill pressed her crest flat against her skull, listening. They're not afraid, she whispered. They're together. Every one of them fights for the others. Another explosion rocked the cadet's position. The Dominion commander fell. His armor split open. Suddenly, all eyes turned to Voris, and to the cadets beneath him. The choice lay before them. Fight on for the Dominion, or listen to the seed of doubt that had been planted days ago. And deep inside, each cadet knew the truth. They were not the hunters here. They were the ones trapped in the predator's den. Would you like me to make part for the turning point, where the cadets either betray the Dominion or face annihilation by the humans? Excellent, let's take it into Part 4, where the cadets reach their breaking point and must choose. Part 4, Cracks in the Chain of Command. The rubble-shattered street stank of smoke and ozone. Dominion corpses smoldered in the open, while human bodies were dragged into cover by their comrades, every one of them retrieved, never left behind. Cadet-turned-Lieutenant Tries crouched beside a broken wall, plasma rifle trembling in his claws. His squad looked to him now. The Dominion commander lay dead, and Captain Voris was pinned down behind collapsed masonry, barking desperate orders no one was obeying. A human shout echoed across the ruins. "Push forward, don't give them time to regroup." Gunfire answered, precise and merciless. Another Dominion soldier fell, chest blown open. The line was collapsing. Sall pressed herself against the rubble, eyes wide. "Tries," she whispered. "We can't hold them. We're finished." Kren snarled, though the sound carried no conviction. "Then we fight to the last. That's what's expected." "Expected by who?" Sall shot back, her mandibles clicking with sharp defiance. "The Dominion? They never told us humans were like this. They lied to us, sent us here like hatchlings into a fire pit." The words hit Tries like a blow. His training screamed at him, loyalty, obedience, duty. Yet the memories of the holoscreens haunted him, those endless battles where humans stood when all reason said they should fall, and now he saw it with his own eyes. The humans weren't savages, they weren't beasts. They were something worse for the Dominion. They were unbreakable. Captain Voris's voice rasped through the calms. "Cadets, rally, we will break their push. If you falter now, the Dominion will brand you cowards and traitors." But when Tries looked at his fellow cadets, he didn't see cowards. He saw confusion, fear, and something else, the spark of rebellion. Kren spoke first, his voice low. "Tries, if we keep following him, we die here, all of us." Sall's crest feathers flared. "Not just die, waste ourselves, while the humans prove every moment why the Dominion fears them." Another human grenade landed nearby, forcing them all deeper into cover. Dust and fire rained over them. Tries made his choice. He switched off the squad comms that linked them to Voris. The captain's furious voice cut off mid-snarl. "Silence, Preston, silence," and the weight of betrayal. Kren's mandibles twitched. "Tries, what have you done?" "Saved us," Tries said, though his voice shook. "The Dominion sent us here blind. The humans fight like nothing we've ever faced. If we keep pretending this is just another conquest, we won't survive. Maybe," his eyes narrowed toward the human lines, "maybe we don't deserve to." Sall's breathing quickened. "Then what? Do we surrender? Defect? Stand down?" The cadets froze as a shadow fell across them. Through the dust and smoke, a human figure emerged, armor scorched, rifle steady, eyes hard beneath the visor. Behind him, more humans advanced, covering angles with ruthless discipline. The cadets raised their weapons by instinct, but none fired. The human stopped a dozen paces away, weapon leveled, and then, slowly, he lowered it. Through the translator, his voice came like gravel and fire. "Your war is over. Choose wisely." The cadets stared at one another. The choice was no longer abstract. It stood before them in flesh and steel. And every heartbeat hammered the same truth into their skulls. The Dominion lied. The humans endure. Would you like me to take Part 5 into the moment where the cadets decide, defect to humanity, or cling to the Dominion even at the cost of annihilation? Alright, here comes Part 5, where the cadets finally make their choice. Part 5, The Choice. The human stood motionless, rifle angled downward, waiting, his soldiers spread out behind him like a pack, weapons ready but not firing. Their discipline was terrifying in its restraint. Tries felt every eye on him, his squadmates, Sall's sharp stare, Kren's trembling mandibles, even Drill, who had finally woken after fainting in the hollow hall and been dragged into the fight, stared at him, searching for guidance. Leader by accident, Tries thought bitterly, but leader still. He looked at his plasma rifle, hands shaking. With a slow breath, he powered it down. The weapon's glow faded to darkness. The humans stiffened, rifles twitching upward, then easing again as they realized what he had done. Tries, Kren hissed. Do you know what this means? If we surrender, the Dominion will brand us traitors. There is no going back. No, Sill said, her crest rising with conviction. There is no going back anyway. Look around. Kren, the Dominion sent us here to die against something they never understood. Humans fight like a flame that consumes everything. We were lied to, used. She locked eyes with Tries. I would rather face judgment with truth than victory with lies. One by one, the cadets' rifles lowered. Drill dropped his outright, claws trembling too hard to hold it. Even Kren, after a long, agonizing pause, deactivated his weapon and let it clatter to the rubble. The human commander gave no triumphant cheer, no cruel smile. He only nodded once, a grim acknowledgement, and gestured. His soldiers moved in, swift and professional, disarming the cadets without striking or jeering. It was over. Hours later, bound but alive, the cadets were led through the human camp. They saw things their instructors had never shown them. Medics treating not only human wounded but captured Dominion soldiers as well. Children huddled in bunkers, fed first before any soldier ate. Fallen comrades carried with reverence, names spoken aloud so they would not be forgotten. The cadets exchanged silent looks. This was not madness. This was not savagery. It was something their Dominion could never understand. Kren whispered, broken. All my life I thought strength meant domination. But here, strength means never abandoning one another, even in death. Syll's voice was sharp, but not unkind. Then maybe we've been following the wrong masters. Tries didn't answer. His thoughts were a storm. He knew the Dominion would call them traitors. He knew if they lived, they would never see their homeworld again. But as he watched the humans move through their ruined city with unyielding determination, he realized something terrifying and undeniable. If the Dominion continued this war, it would not be humanity that was destroyed. It would be the Dominion. Would you like me to take Part 6 into the aftermath, where the cadets are interrogated, and humans ask the question that could change the war? Will you fight with us instead? Perfect, here's Part 6, where the cadets face interrogation and the question that will define their future. Part 6, the question. The cadets were brought into a dimly lit chamber deep beneath the human encampment. The air smelled of metal and oil, tinged with antiseptic. 2 human guards stood watch at the door, their weapons idle but ready. At the table sat a human officer, older than the soldiers the cadets had seen on the battlefield. His hair was streaked with gray, his uniform worn but neat. His eyes, sharp, steady, and utterly without fear, studied them one by one. When he finally spoke, the translator rendered his words in a low, deliberate tone. You've seen our war. You've seen how we fight, how we bleed. Now you'll tell me why the Dominion sent you here. Tries hesitated. He looked to his squadmates. Kren's mandibles clicked nervously. Drill stared at the floor. Sill leaned forward with open defiance. Finally, Tries answered. We were told you were savages, that you were fractured, unworthy, that conquering you would be swift. The officer leaned back, arms crossed. And now? Tries swallowed. His throat felt dry as sand. Now I know, the Dominion lied. You are not weak. You are not savages. You are, he struggled for the word, enduring. Syll's crest feathers flared. You are what the Dominion fears most. A people who refuse to be broken. The officer studied them in silence for a long, suffocating moment. Then he leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. Good. You've learned something your empire never will. But now comes the hard part. His voice hardened. Will you keep serving the Dominion, or will you stand with us? The words hit like a detonation. The cadets froze. Kren hissed. Stand with you? Against our own kind? That's treason. Sill snapped back. Our own kind sent us to die in a war built on lies. What loyalty do we owe them? Drill's voice cracked, thin but desperate. If we join them, the Dominion will hunt us forever. Our families, they'll be punished. The officer's gaze softened, but only slightly. Every war has a cost, but I won't force you. You can remain prisoners, live out your days far from the front. Or you can fight, not for me, not even for humans, but for truth, for survival. He stood, hands pressing against the table. His shadow fell across them like a blade. So, what will it be? Tries' heart pounded. He felt the weight of every choice, every life. His claws flexed against the cold metal table. Behind him, he could almost hear the echo of human voices on the battlefield. No one left behind. Hold the line. Endure. And for the first time, he wondered if the cadets' destiny was no longer to be soldiers of the Dominion, but something far greater. Would you like me to make Part 7 the moment where Tries and his cadets finally decide, and maybe even fight with the humans in their first joint battle? Excellent, let's move into Part 7, where the cadets make their choice and see combat again, this time at humanity's side. Part 7, Baptism by Fire. The silence after the human officer's question stretched like a blade across the room. Kren's mandibles clicked anxiously. Drill stared down, shoulders trembling. Eswell's eyes, sharp and bright, locked on Tries. The others would follow him, that much was clear. Tries forced himself to breathe. He remembered the academy, the holoscreens of human wars, the endless Dominion lectures about control, order, inevitability. Then he remembered the battlefield, the humans pulling their wounded into cover, medics working in blood and smoke, soldiers fighting until their last breath not for empire, but for each other. The Dominion taught that strength was domination. The humans showed that strength was endurance. He raised his head. We will not fight for the Dominion again. Kren let out a sharp hiss. Tries. No. Sall cut him off. He's right. We've already seen what the humans are, what they stand for. That is worth more than the Dominion's lies. The human officer's expression barely shifted, but his eyes softened with a flicker of approval. Then you'll get your chance sooner than you think. The opportunity came within hours. A Dominion strike team launched a counterattack on the human camp, heavy armor pushing through the ruins. Artillery rained down, shattering the city further. The humans scrambled to defensive positions. The cadets, still technically prisoners, were herded toward the shelters, but Tries stopped. His claws clenched tight on the human-issued rifle they had allowed him for training. We said we would stand with them, he told his squad. This is the moment. Kren's crest feathers twitched, torn between fear and loyalty. But at last, he sighed and lifted his weapon. If I die today, Tries, it will be with truth. The others nodded, even Drill, though his hands shook violently on the grip of his borrowed gun. The cadets took their place alongside the humans on the barricades. When the Dominion mechs advanced, they fired. Plasma lanced from rifles they had once turned on humans, now cutting into their own kind's machines. Human soldiers barked orders, and the cadets moved with them, covering angles, dragging wounded to safety, shouting warnings when Dominion flankers tried to break through. For the first time in their lives, the cadets fought not out of fear of punishment or hunger for conquest. They fought for each other, for survival, for something greater than the Dominion's chains. A Dominion trooper charged their position. Tries shot first, sending the soldier sprawling. He froze, staring at the fallen warrior, a face not so different from his own. His stomach twisted. The human next to him clapped a bloodied hand on his shoulder. Don't think too hard, just hold the line. And so he did. Hours later, the battlefield was quiet. Smoke curled into the sky. The Dominion strike had been repelled. The human officer strode among the survivors, taking in the sight of his own men and the cadets standing side by side. His gaze met Tries's, and this time his approval was plain. You've chosen, he said simply. Tries felt the weight of the words. There was no going back now. The Dominion would brand them deserters, traitors, less than nothing. But for the first time, he felt free. Sall spoke what they were all thinking, her voice steady. We're cadets of the Dominion no longer. Whatever happens next, we stand here. And in that shattered city, among human soldiers who fought like fire itself, a handful of alien cadets found not just survival, but purpose. Would you like me to write Part 8 as the point where the humans begin to test these ex-cadets further, wondering if they can be trusted, and putting them through trials to prove their loyalty? Alright, here's Part 8, where the humans begin testing the cadets to see if they're truly allies, not infiltrators. Part 8, Trial by Trust. The battle-scorched city was quiet now, save for the groans of the wounded and the distant rumble of retreating Dominion craft. The cadets, no, the defectors, were herded into a separate section of the human camp. Not chained, not locked, but watched, always watched. Human guards kept their rifles slung but hands near the triggers. Every movement of the cadets was measured, recorded, weighed for intent. Kren bristled under the scrutiny. They don't trust us. Sall shot him a withering glance. Why should they? Yesterday we were their enemies. Today we fought beside them. That doesn't erase what we were. Drill hunched low, crest feathers drooping. What if they never trust us? Tries stayed silent. He understood. He wouldn't have trusted himself either. The officer returned after 3 days. His name, they learned, was Colonel Hale. He studied them with the same steady eyes, then dropped a battered datapad on the table before them. Here's the problem, Hale said. Your Dominion doesn't give up. They'll be back, in greater numbers, and they'll burn this whole sector to ash if they have to. We need intel, routes, supply lines, command protocols, things only you know. Kren hissed. You want us to betray everything we've ever been? No, Hale said flatly. You've already done that. Now you decide if it means anything. The cadets exchanged uneasy glances. Tries finally spoke. If we give you this, you'll still see us as enemies, as aliens. Hale leaned forward, voice like iron. You fought with my people. I saw it. You bled with them. That earns you a chance. But trust isn't given. It's proved, over and over again. He tapped the datapad. So prove it. The cadets were split. Kren argued furiously against handing over secrets. We're already outcasts. If we help them destroy our people, then what are we? Swall's eyes burned with conviction. We're survivors. We're more than pawns of the Dominion. This is our chance to be something new. Drill shook with indecision, muttering about family and punishment, about homeworlds he would never see again. But in the end, Tries chose. He placed his clawed hand on the datapad and pushed it across the table to Hale. Ask your questions. That night, the cadets gave the humans what they knew: Dominion fleet patrol patterns, the structure of their command caste, the rhythms of their supply lines. Not everything, they were still careful, still torn, but enough that Hale's grim face softened into something close to respect. When they finished, he nodded once. Good, you've taken your first step. Sall asked the question hanging over them all. What happens now? Hale's gaze was steady. Now we see if you'll fight when it costs you everything. The next test wasn't going to be in a classroom or a guarded bunker. It was going to be back on the battlefield, against their own kind. Would you like me to make Part 9 the moment where the cadets face Dominion soldiers they personally know, former instructors or classmates, and are forced to prove where their loyalties now lie? Here we go, Part 9, where the cadets finally come face to face with their own kind. Part 9, Brothers Across the Site. The mission came at dawn. Colonel Hale didn't dress it up in words. He simply pointed to a holomap and laid out the objective: an ambush on a Dominion supply convoy cutting through the ruins to reinforce their lines. A simple strike and fade, except the cadets knew those routes. They knew exactly who would be guarding them. And when the ambush was sprung, their fears proved right. The first explosion tore through the lead crawler, flipping it into twisted wreckage. Human rifle fire shredded the escort lines. Dominion soldiers scrambled for cover, returning fire with disciplined volleys. Tries' stomach dropped when he saw the unit insignias painted on their armor. These weren't faceless strangers. They were academy cohorts. Cadet ranks elevated to soldiers, once sparring partners in sterile training halls. Faces he had memorized in long drills and lectures now glared at him across rifle sights. Traitor, one of them screamed, voice carried through amplifiers. Plasma bolts slammed into the walls around Tries' position. He froze. His rifle felt heavier than it ever had. Could he really pull the trigger? Could he end the life of someone who, only months ago, had shared meals and studied beside him? Sall crouched next to him, returning fire without hesitation. Her shots forced the Dominion line to scatter. Don't falter, Tries. If you hesitate, you'll die, and so will we. On the other flank, Kren fought like a storm, his mandibles bared in fury. But his shouts weren't aimed at the humans, they were for his own kind. You sent us here to burn. You called us expendable. Look at what you made of us. His plasma bolts tore into the Dominion's armored troopers, each shot a howl of betrayal. Then came the worst moment. Through the smoke and fire, a Dominion officer emerged, a familiar, towering silhouette. Captain Voris. Armor scarred, mandibles twisted in fury, he strode through the chaos with his rifle raised. His voice boomed across the ruins. Cadets, stand down now. You can still return. Do not throw away your blood for these primitives. The battlefield froze for a heartbeat. The Dominion troopers rallied at their captain's voice. The human line braced, rifles ready. And all eyes turned to the cadets. Drill shook so hard he nearly dropped his weapon. Tries, it's Voris. He'll kill us if we don't go back. Sill spat. Go back to what? Chains? Lies? Being told humans are weak while we've seen the truth? Kren leveled his weapon at Voris, mandibles wide. He sent us here to die. He deserves the end we saw in those holoscreens. But Tries felt the world narrowing. His old captain on one side, his new path on the other. Voris's voice thundered again. You are Dominion. Remember your blood. Fire on the humans, or I will cut you down where you stand. The human colonel's voice cut across the calms, calm but hard as stone. Make your choice, cadets, right here, right now. Tries raised his rifle. His claws trembled, the weight of every moment pressed on his chest. And for the second time in his life, he realized he wasn't choosing survival anymore. He was choosing who he was. Would you like me to make Part 10 the climax? Where Tries and the cadets give their answer in fire, either killing their old captain or sparing him, proving to the humans where their loyalty lies? Here it is, Part 10, the climax. Part 10, the answer in fire. The ruins echoed with silence, broken only by the crackle of flames and the hiss of cooling plasma. Captain Voris stood in the open, his armor reflecting firelight, rifle raised, his eyes locked on the cadets, his cadets. His voice roared like a storm. Last chance, return to your blood, or die as traitors. The Dominion troopers tightened formation around him, weapons fixed. Across the line, humans crouched behind rubble, fingers steady on their triggers, waiting. The battlefield was a taut wire ready to snap. And in the middle stood Tries, rifle trembling in his claws, the weight of two worlds crushing down on him. He remembered Voris's lectures. The endless drills, order above all. The Dominion is eternal. You exist to serve. And he remembered the humans, pulling their wounded through fire, refusing to abandon anyone. Even when doom pressed in, no one left behind. His mandibles clicked softly. The choice had already been made, he only needed the courage to speak it. Tries stepped forward, rifle raised, not at the humans, but at his old captain. Voris froze. Shock rippled through the Dominion line. What are you doing, cadet? I am not your cadet anymore, Tries said, his voice breaking but clear. You taught us the Dominion was strength, but strength is not domination. It is endurance. It is loyalty to each other. That is what humans showed us, and that is what you fear. Sill rose beside him, her rifle leveled. We choose truth. Kren bared his mandibles in a snarl, and freedom. Even Drill, shaking so hard he could barely aim, lifted his weapon. No more lies. The line shattered. The Dominion opened fire first, but the cadets fired back, not into rubble or shadows, but directly into the ranks of their former comrades. Plasma bolts lit the ruins. Human rifles thundered in reply, joining the cadets' defiance in one roaring storm. Captain Voris bellowed in rage, charging forward. He raised his rifle to cut Tries down. And Tries fired. The bolt struck Voris square in the chest, cracking his armor, sending him crashing to the ground. The Dominion formation faltered, then broke, retreating into the smoke. Silence fell again, except for the rasp of breathing and the moans of the dying. Tries lowered his rifle, staring at Voris's fallen form. His chest burned with something raw and hollow. He had killed his captain, his teacher, his world's voice. But when he turned, the humans stood beside them, not suspicious, not hostile, but accepting. Colonel Hale stepped forward, rifle slung, eyes hard but steady. He looked at Tries, then at the other cadets. You've answered, he said simply. Sill lifted her chin. We are not Dominion anymore. Hale gave a single nod. Then you're with us, and we've got a war to win. In the ruins of that city, under a sky burning with smoke, the cadets' fate was sealed. They were no longer students of conquest, no longer soldiers of the Dominion. They had chosen fire, endurance, and humanity. And the galaxy would never be the same. Would you like me to keep going into an epilogue, showing how these former cadets become a symbol across the galaxy, proof that even the Dominion's children could break away after seeing humanity fight? Got it, here's the epilogue, closing the arc but leaving the door open for more. Epilogue, the cadets who chose. The Dominion called them traitors. Official broadcasts named them cowards, oathbreakers, corrupted by human madness. Their faces were plastered across propaganda streams, their names stricken from academy records, their families condemned to silence or worse. But in the shadows of war, whispers grew. Whispers of cadets who had seen humanity fight and chosen not to return. Within the human lines, Tries, SILL, Kren, Drill, and the few others who survived the ambush became something different, not just defectors, not just prisoners turned fighters, but a symbol. When human soldiers spoke of them, it was with a mixture of caution and respect. They had once been enemies, but now they carried rifles in the same trenches, shared rations under the same ruined skies, and bled into the same dirt. In every battle, the cadets fought harder than most, perhaps to prove themselves, perhaps because they knew the Dominion would never forgive them, perhaps because they had found something worth more than empire, a cause. One night, weeks later, Colonel Hale found Tries sitting alone by a campfire, staring at the stars. "You're quieter than your friends," Hale said, lowering himself onto a crate beside him. Tries' mandibles twitched. "I still see his face, Captain Voris, when I pulled the trigger, when I chose." Hale studied him for a long time, then looked up at the burning sky. War isn't about erasing faces, it's about deciding which ones you can't live without. He glanced at Tries. "You made your choice, now live it." The cadets never returned to the Dominion. They could not, but as the war ground on, their story spread, from trench to trench, ship to ship, world to world. Dominion soldiers began to hear it whispered. Even their own cadets saw the truth. Even their children turned against them. Even the Dominion cannot tame what endures. And somewhere, in the fire and ruin of Sol, the galaxy's balance shifted. Because what the cadets mistook for madness was humanity's strength. And what humanity mistook for survival was the beginning of victory. Sparkles, end of arc. Sparkles. Would you like me to now start a new arc in the same universe? Maybe from the Dominion High Command's perspective as they realize their campaign isn't going as planned? That would let us expand this HFY universe into something bigger.